Welcome everyone to episode 7 of the Blockchain Bay podcast. Today I'm with Brad from DePIN Connection, and we are going to be talking about the DePIN sector and what it means for the future of crypto.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be on, man. Glad we could connect on this.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we could just kick it off. I want to know a little bit more about you and crypto. How did you get into crypto and the DePIN sector? And we can go from there.
Yeah, so a little bit about my background. So I'm from St. Louis. I live in Chicago now. My background's I have a degree in finance, and I've been in the solar industry for like 15 years. So currently managing 10-state territory. I do a lot of, it's more consulting role, I'd say. Like I work with business owners on pricing strategy, marketing strategy, making sure they have operations hired up. And the main thing I do is sales trainings. So I do a lot of sales trainings and national trainings, and spent some time in New York, in DC. Also worked in the drone service space, which is kind of interesting. We were doing like thermal inspections on utility scale solar and doing rooftop measurements with what's called photogrammetry. So taking like, hundreds of thousands of pictures and stitching them together into a 3D model. And then taking that 3D point cloud and basically creating CAD files. So say like what I'm doing in the crypto space right now is kind of a combination of different aspects of all those things in my background. But as far as how I got into crypto, like I remember it distinctly because there are several opportunities where I wish I'd gotten in a little sooner. I knew a guy back right after college that I think it was like 2011, and he was telling us all about Bitcoin. And we thought he was crazy. I wish I'd listened to him because I'd probably be like on an island somewhere right now. But yeah, man. And then, again, I know you've been in since what you said, 2017, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a buddy, I was sitting at the bar and he's like, hey, it's like 2017. And he's like, hey man, Bitcoin is going to $1 million one day. I'm like, I was like, okay, like whatever, and I was closed-minded, but
Yeah.
over time I was like, all right, there's a lot of smart people coming into this space and there's obviously something there. So it was, I guess it was the end of 2020. I was back visiting family in St. Louis and I got COVID, man. I was staying in a separate Airbnb and, cause I didn't want to get anybody exposed, but yeah, I got COVID and, that was in the early days of COVID. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take myself back to Chicago. And that was a rough drive. But I remember getting back and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, we've been kind of holed up for a whole year at this point. And I'm not going to be able to do anything for the next 2 weeks. It's like a 14-day quarantine. And I was thinking, like, when am I going to be in this position again where I don't have to choose between going out and socializing versus staying home? And I'm like, if all I have to show for this time is like a really badass Animal Crossings island, I'm going to have some really serious regrets. So I was like, all right, I went on Udemy and took a couple blockchain courses. And man, light bulb went off. So like ever since then, I just spend like hours every day researching the space for the last few years. And, once I get dialed in on something, I really hone in on it. And yeah, it's such a cool space. And that's really where I came across DePIN because I found helium. And I think like you have a similar story about how you got into DePIN space too, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much helium. I don't even know. I think, oh yeah. So I started off watching Bitsby Tripping and Red Panda Mining and Voscoin. Those are like the main things when I first found out about crypto. I was like, how do I get into this? Because people can mine it. So I saw Voscoin's videos on how he was GPU mining, and this was 2017. So I was like, all right, let's see what I can do. I found two 1070, I think they're just 1070 Ti's founder editions or something at a local Best Buy. And I bought them. I think it was $400 total, or $400 each for them. So my dad loaned me the money because at the time I was 17. I didn't have $800 to just drop. And I started mining all these random coins, Bitcoin, Zcash, whatever it was. And then I kind of just let it go for a couple of years. And then I got back into the space like 2021. And I saw all the Bitcoin I mined. Is like, what? It's worth how much now? And I mined Zcash and I mined a whole Zcash and I was so happy about it. I was like, let's see how much it's worth. And I still have it. It's worth like $30. It's like the biggest disappointment I've ever had. But I was able to actually as soon as I bought those GPUs, that was like the last you were able to buy them. Like they were sold out forever. And then when this most recent bull run came, I still had them laying around, just not doing anything. I was able to sell them for a profit 4 years later from what I paid for them. And I went back on my buddy Voscoin's YouTube channel and I saw him posting this project called Helium. I was like, what's this? And that was pretty much the light bulb that went off for me as well. And I just started looking at it. I bought like with all the money that I made from GPU mining previously, I bought a whole bunch of GPUs and I was mining GPUs for a while. And then I used all those funds to buy some helium miners. And then that's kind of when my YouTube channel picked up, is because I started making content on the helium miners. And then it just kind of exploded from there. People reach out to me. I joined Discords. And then they were like, hey, you should inform people not to buy the Nebra miner or the Syncrobit. So then I made videos on them and it attracted even more people. And now I just have kind of this small following of people from Helium that have just kind of led me along a good path and introduced me to new projects. That's how I found out about High Mapper and Demo and all these other DePINs. So it's kind of a lot of the community's thanks for why I've gone down this path is because I see it seems like the GPU area is kind of saturated with a lot of YouTubers. And I feel like it'd be a lot easier for me to go down and show them a new way in crypto. And this is an emerging space. And I feel like that's kind of why you're in this space too. You want to educate people on this new area.
For sure, man. I wish I had seen your videos on Nebra because I got burned by that. So like that was so frustrating, but similar for me because like, so, DePIN, for those that don't know, decentralized physical infrastructure networks. I think the reason why it caught my eye is because, well, there's a number of reasons. For one, I think it can fix this whole issue with a lot of stuff in the crypto space where there's this revenue issue, right? Like a lot of this stuff is speculative because we're so early on in everything. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of it's the infrastructure of like the layer ones, and then it was the layer twos, and now you have the ZK rollups and all that. So like a lot of it's the infrastructure kind of being built out. Whereas with DePIN, whether it's building out infrastructure like Helium did, right? Or you got like, Render, like decentralized cloud computing, or Filecoin, decentralized cloud storage. And now with this new sensor category, like data collection, you're seeing actual revenue coming into these projects. And, I think that gives you a lot more legitimacy. But secondly, I would say these concepts make sense to the average person, because if you're out there, you're talking about, as soon as you mention the word blockchain to the average person, like their brain shuts off, and they're like, that's way above my head, But if you're like, hey, you know what I mean? Like if you're like, oh, like you put this dash cam in your windshield to collect street level imagery to create like a fresher map than what Google has, and you get rewarded for it. It's like, oh, that makes sense, right? And from that perspective, like, globally, right? I think it's 5% of people have crypto assets. Now, obviously in the US and Europe, that percentage is definitely higher. But like looking at that from a global perspective, if you can bring non-crypto people into your project, you're increasing your target audience by like 20x. Yeah. And so I think that, DePIN can bring new people into the space. It can solve that revenue issue that we've seen with other parts of crypto, because it's, we're still very early in this, right? In this technology. And the other part of this is that Helium showed the ability to scale, and you can really ramp up participation in ways that we've never seen before. Like the fact that we went from like 15,000 hotspots to 1 million hotspots in 18 months in the midst of supply constraints. Yeah. Is truly impressive. So that's why I really started like dialing in on this space, man. And Helium, obviously, they didn't do everything perfectly, right? Because they were kind of like making the playbook. But I have to say, like overall, I know they caught a lot of flack, but shoot, I think it overall was a really large success. And they've made it through a bear market, right? And faced a lot of adversity. I mean, you're there for it. Between, you mentioned Nebra and Syncrobit, right? They had Forbes like bash them in an article.
Mhm.
They were also tied to the Sam Bankman-Fried thing where Alameda had invested money in them. So and then also like Discord got a little toxic there for a while. So
Yeah.
to overcome all of that, and it's looking like they're going to have like a major, comeback in this market cycle. Like, I think helium really has led the way and, segued a lot of people like you and me and other people in the space into these other projects,
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I have Helium Mobile on my phone right now, and I've been earning every day like $2.50 on it's February 2nd, the day of this recording. And then I have my indoor hotspot that I connect my phone to, and it's just I earn. But I think something that you pointed out is that they proved that they could scale. I also think coming into the next bull run, whenever it does approach, I think DPINs have solved a very big issue that the outside world sees as an issue with crypto, and that's energy. Because with
Mm.
all the crypto mining traditionally in the past, it's been with huge power bills, with all these ASICs and GPU massive farms all over the country and the globe. This was like one of the main things, and that's why Ethereum went to proof of stake, because they wanted to reduce the amount of energy they were causing. I think DPIN is like 100% the future for crypto. As far as the energy crisis, like this is the answer.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, to that end, it does solve a lot of problems, right? Like, if you're looking at like decentralized cloud storage, like Render is a great example. Nosana, built on Solana, has gone on quite a run. They solve real world issues, because if you look at the TSMC, manufacture the high end microchips that are necessary, and basically everyone in the world goes through TSMC out of Taiwan. You have Apple, you have Google, you have Microsoft, the freaking US government. Like, pretty much everybody goes through TSMC, but there's this shortage of, these high-end microchips right now. So, what Render and Nosana are doing are allowing people to take idle GPUs that are no longer being used, and think about Ethereum miners, for example, that have all these GPUs, like, and leverage those in new ways to open up more bandwidth. Because like with AI, for example, there's a huge need for computational power. And so I think that's just really one example of where DePIN is really huge. We talked about helium. I'm curious, what other projects are you bullish on right now in the DePIN space?
High Mapper, definitely, but there's been some things that have been brought up to my attention that have kind of lead me to believe some other things with High Mapper, but also I think it's just people trying to spread FUD. Same thing I saw with Helium, a bunch of people trying to spread FUD as soon as the price went up a little bit. And I think it's because they were a little upset that they sold all their helium when it went to like $1. So there's High Mapper, GeoNet, WeatherXM, PiFi is one that it's a group of guys that I actually know. I could go on my Discord. I have like a separated folder of them. Crank is huge as well. I've been covering Crank for a good time. Things IX. I'm sure I'm missing some of them, but
Are you in
there's just
Demo at all?
Demo. Yeah, so I am supposed to get a Demo device in the next couple of weeks. I reached out to them. I had one in the very beginning. I think like one of the first 2 or 3 people that covered Demo when they first came into the space, and you can like look at my Discord. I'm like see the date that I joined. It was like right when their Discord went live, but I got one of them, and then I ended up selling it because it wasn't compatible with my vehicle at the time,
Hmm.
and it was $300, I think, and I needed it for textbooks, so I sold it and I bought the textbooks. And I wish I didn't buy the textbooks because they rewarded the founder people for buying demos with a huge airdrop that it's worth like $4,500 now. And
Yeah.
it's just like I didn't get $4,500 worth of textbooks or education out of that $300. So
Well,
it's a bitter I was a little bitter with demo for a while, but it has nothing to do with the company. I think their whole game plan as a total is just like it's really good. But now I feel like, I mean, we can go back and forth on this, but in terms of like picking the right blockchain, it seems like DPINs are separated on either Polygon or Solana. and I don't know which one's going to be the right one going forward, or if just both of them are going to be what's.
Yeah, I don't know that it really. I mean, I don't know. People are building on Solana. I think a lot of the projects on Solana after Breakpoint saw a lot of positive price action. But Polygon has massive adoption too, and from a lot of large entities. I mean, I think like Starbucks and like Coca-Cola, I'm pretty sure are using it. Like, so, and people are sleeping on Polygon. So I don't know that it was necessarily like a bad move, but there might be some like cross-chain compatibility coming, because I know one of their founders sent out a tweet that had like a demo token on Solana. So I don't know. But either way, I don't know that it really matters so much, because you can always change blockchains if you need to. I think it's more so with these projects like, okay, are you driving participation? Are you executing to drive revenue on the back end? Like, are the developers pushing the project forward? And then, digging into the tokenomics does matter with these projects. And,
Yeah.
That's something that like I'm seeing more and more about Hivemapper. I do want to address in this video, because I think it is necessary. But all in all, though, I mean, yeah, and I'm in similar projects, by the way. So like I have currently 55 Hivemapper units out on the road today. I have another 145 ordered, which it's something I want to bring up on this video too, about the future state of Hivemapper and where I see this going. Those orders might be shifting. I don't know. And then, demo, I'm up to like 170 vehicles in my demo fleet.
Wow.
And I'm adding to that as well. And let's see, GeoNet, I haven't deployed any units. I have plans to. I do have money invested in their token for sure. Not financial advice, by the way. Nothing in this video is financial advice. And I do own a fair amount of Nasana. I actually put a video out on Nasana at like 2 cents.
I don't think I've heard of them.
Nasana, so they're a decentralized cloud computing protocol, a little bit like Render, but that one I would put it out a video at like 2 cents, and it's up to like, I want to say like $1.40, and that was like 3 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like a 2 million market cap when I first started pushing that out. They got highlighted as Solana Breakpoint. I'm like, man, this is so obvious. But there's another one, actually, Teleport. I don't know if you heard of Teleport. So I'm talking to their team a little bit, but they're launching a decentralized rideshare application. So like Uber and Lyft. Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
I was just talking about this in my my accounting class the other day. I was like, it would be perfect. I was thinking if there was a decentralized rideshare application, because I mean, like, come on, it's just like right there in front of your face. It's exactly what we need. It's just one more thing to pull people into the space.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I actually had a meeting with their CEO last week, because they saw my Uber and Lyft recruitment video on my channel, and they reached out. And so we've had some discussions. They're getting close to launching their first cities, but it's the perfect time, because I can tell you, Uber and Lyft, their fares have gone up. Like, they've doubled actually, essentially over the last 5 years. And drivers are making maybe the same, in many cases less than they were making. And so Uber and Lyft, they become so top heavy because they're trying to move into all these other sectors too, like food delivery and, and grocery delivery. And so the whole concept is like cutting out all that high overhead so that you can come to market with a better price for consumers and better, pay to drivers. And I think there's a huge market there, so someone's going to do it. And I was like, man, this group, they also got, I think like $11 million investment like a year ago. So I'm super excited about seeing where they go with that. And I'm going to try to work closely with them and see where it goes. And let's see. So I talked about GeoNet, Demo, Hivemapper, obviously Helium. I still have like 60 rooftop installs on the IoT side.
One other thing, I forget the name of the company you just mentioned, but SwordChain, I don't know if you heard of them, and their Modus. It's kind of like Demo, it plugs in. I saw on their website they had plans to possibly be similar to a ride-sharing app. So there could be competitors coming up at the same time there. But that doesn't seem like it's on their, it's just like on their to-do list. There's no plans yet.
Yeah, so that's so I worked in the startup space at this drone company. It's like at a certain point, when you're like Demo, for example, is another example of this. Like you kind of need to focus on certain things. Like there's a lot of ways that these projects can take, different verticals, if you will. But if you spread yourself out too thin and you don't really focus on being really good at a few things, like you can actually hurt yourself. So I haven't looked at the Motus too much. I don't know how their network connectivity works. If it's through like an IoT network or if they have cell connectivity built in, but Demo right now, they have the AutoPi with cell connectivity built in. They have the Macaron, which connects the Helium network. And I think they probably are working on some additional options because they're the same thing. They're back ordered like crazy right now too.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, but I do want to talk about HiveMapper. And I know you mentioned that you'd been hearing some things like, sounds like some people are like salty in the community or whatever.
Yeah.
What you want to expand on that?
Yeah. So this is thanks to Network Bits. That's Joe. He added me to this chat and he sent me a Discord link to like this private Discord server with like it was like a whole bunch of exiled HiveMapper people. And I remember this happened back in the day with Helium, and there was another project I covered called Rebelfi that just did terrible. There's a bunch of litigation. People are trying to sue this guy, but there's like these Discord servers people make, and everyone can join together and kind of just talk about stuff that you can't talk about in the normal servers. Like you can talk about the price, you can talk about any sort of like confidential and important information. So there's this X mod in there that has just been talking a bunch about HiveMapper and bringing up some fairly good points about the token unlocks that have been happening for the employees. And I made a video, I think it was 2 months ago. Wow, time flies. Yeah, in December, or maybe it was early January. No, it was December, about the supply like doubling overnight. And I was like, what is going on? The supply, it was as soon as the price was going up, the supply doubled, and then the price came back down. And that's when it kind of brought to my attention a lot of the other people about how many like tokens are being unlocked on a monthly basis, and the effect that that's having on the price. And it's kind of just suppressing the price. Like as soon as it goes up, all of those tokens that the employees have, they could be selling, and the price is coming back down.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I obviously before I invested in the project, like I read through the tokenomics like in really good detail, so I knew all that was coming. Like, so yeah, I mean, we can hop into that. Like, so here when I look at these projects and look at like price projections. And I think it's important to talk about, especially with HiveMapper, because I'm seeing some pretty like unrealistic expectations about where the token price is going to go. Because, I see people talking about like $10 per honey, $20 per honey, which is like pretty outrageous given the supply. So to your point, like this year alone, between employees, what's eligible to unlock to employees and investors, there's 3 billion tokens. Okay. Next year to employees is another billion tokens. So that's 40% of the supply going to investors and employees. Now, look, that's a little bit higher than some projects. That said, like they do have a lot of overhead when dealing with building a map, building and R&D, and building their own camera and manufacturing in the U.S. and all that. So I don't have necessarily a huge bone to pick with the percentage. It's the unlock schedule that I was kind of like, it's pretty quick, really, like for the investors to get it all this year. And the other part of that is, there is 40% that goes to contributors. And their unlock schedule is based on global progress. So I'm like, in my mind, I was like, well, maybe like have the employees like unlock period tied to global progress too, because we're kind of on this together. But regardless, it is, the tokenomics are what they are. And so you have 4 billion tokens unlocked by the end of 2025 if all the employee token unlocks happen, which I have to assume they will. And then you have the treasury which is they've been using it to distribute to participants. And then I think there's like a Helium Inc. for like R&D and that sort of thing. So in total, that's 6 billion tokens. So you have to assume by the end of 2025 that 60% is going to be in circulation. Okay. The other aspect of this, though, is like kind of unknown as far as the contributor unlocks. So, right now, I think there's over 200 million tokens unlocked to contributors so far. I expect that to ramp up as global progress ramps up. So the number I've been kind of using, and most of my projections that I do on token prices are out into 2025. Okay. Just looking at historical market cycles. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit too in this video, but we have to make some assumptions. So I'm kind of expecting that, 7 billion or 70% of the tokens will be in circulation at the end of 2025. So that's part of the puzzle here. The other part is, okay, what's the market cap potential?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say there's a high upside case. Then I do kind of like a moderate, what's more possible, and then a downside case, because I think we need to, in the crypto space, I feel like a lot of people it's fun to talk about the upside case, but for risk management, like you have to really take in consideration all options and scenarios. So high upside case, as far as market cap goes, we can look at other projects. Like I look at Helium as somewhat of a comparison, and Helium got to just over a $5 billion market cap in the last market cycle. Now, it's a little bit different because Helium was infrastructure being built out and really wasn't generating revenue at all. And it was the prior market cycle before DePIN really had all this momentum. So I would say, for Hivemapper, they're already generating revenue. That's one of the big things I like about this sensor category or data collection, is that they can turn on revenue right away. Yeah. The other part is like, okay, if we do see this bull run that we're all hoping for, the DePIN narrative is really picking up steam, right? I hate to say narrative because it sounds like, oh, it's just this narrative that's going to pump. And I think this is like a legitimate sector that's coming out of the crypto space. So, I do think if they do what I think they're going to do on the hardware side, which we'll talk about, and they announce a couple big name clients, which it sounds like they have some that are under NDA right now. Yeah. And the revenue picks up and global progress picks up. I could see a scenario where this hits a $10 billion market cap. I don't know that it would happen, but I think it's possible. Okay. But even if that's the high upside case at 7 billion tokens in circulation, that's a dollar, like $1.42, I think, per honey. Okay. And that's, to me, that's like the biggest bull case. So for people talking about 5, 10, 20, dollar honey, to me, that's just not realistic. I think it's far more realistic, again, if these things come together and we have this bull run. I think 70 cents to $1, because that's like kind of a psychological number at $1. Like I could see that more likely happening. But I also think that we need to consider that there are some other scenarios here when you look at the global economy. And before I get into that, because I'm getting into the weeds a little bit here, but like, I'm curious if you have anything to add or what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so obviously I'm hopeful that the token goes up to $20, but realistically, it's very easy to see what a realistic number is just by taking the token price and timesing it by the circulating supply or the total supply. That's how you get the market cap. And people just don't know it. Like it's literally a multiplication problem. And I've covered this in many videos. I've showed it on screen. Like, all right, if we were to get to $10, it would be like it would have a market cap like the size of Ethereum, and it's just not going to happen, at least in the near future. But I did see when it did get listed on Coinbase for 2 to 3 seconds, it was at 90 cents. And I was like, oh my gosh, but it didn't stand very long.
Yeah. I think you put a video. Did you put a video out on that? Wasn't there like a bidding process or something that caused that? I think
yeah. So the way it worked for Coinbase is when they release a new token, I don't know if it's for every token, but they have this period. So Hivemapper went live 12 p.m. Eastern my time. I believe it was 12 p.m. And for the first 10 minutes, it's this auction process where pretty much you insert the however many honey you want and how much money you want to spend, and it fills it on I believe, a FIFO uh,
Okay.
basis. So it's like first in, first out. So first person that orders, they get rewarded with that correspondingly. And basically, as it goes on, people are paying higher and higher for less amount of honey, and it just fills all those orders for the first 10 minutes. And then after that, after they test it and everything is working, then it's open on Coinbase.com and just regular Coinbase. So that's all taking place on the Coinbase. I believe it's called Coinbase Pro. It used to be called something else back in the day, but that's all being taken place on Coinbase Pro, and then it moves to Coinbase, and then anybody can buy it. And then after that point, that's when the price goes from whatever the crazy auction price is to like a stable price, and then it goes from there.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering. I saw that. I thought it was a glitch. I'm like, what? How did that hit 90 cents? I was like, what? Okay. I want to talk about the thing that like a lot of people aren't really talking about right now, because everyone's just expecting that we're going to have this bull run. We hope that, and I think there's a good case, a good chance that does happen, right? That we do have this bull run post Bitcoin halving. But one thing that I think we need to talk about is the fact that for the first time since Bitcoin's inception, we're in a quantitative tightening environment where the Fed has been raising rates. Like Bitcoin started back in 2009, right? And it was right after the recession, and interest rates have been near zero for a long time. And this is the first time we've had a Bitcoin halving where interest rates are higher. And low interest rates are very bullish for risk on assets like crypto. So we can look at historical market cycles, but this is going to be a little bit different. And there's also some warning signs right now in the economy. So look at commercial real estate right now. Like the vacancies in December were the highest we've seen since the height of COVID. And our banks are sitting on, they have a lot of exposure right now to commercial real estate assets. And that is very concerning. And there were a lot of commercial loans that had gotten extensions that are, things are about to come to a head here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more regional, smaller banks failing here in the coming months. And I think it's going to be a topic that's in the news. Now, the big banks, the expectation is that we'll see consolidation. The big banks will buy them up and they'll be too big to fail. And that might be the case, but there's still going to be uncertainty and concern in the market, which could have an impact on the overall economy. The second thing is, the job market, right? So we just saw job market numbers where at unemployment is like 3.6 to 3.7%, I want to say. So that's relatively, that's actually strong. Okay. But UPS just laid off 12,000 people. PayPal laid off 9% of their workforce. The company I work for has had layoffs. I know a lot of people that have been laid off, and I think the job market is starting to weaken, which also is a bit concerning, right? And when you look at the consumer sentiment, the consumer spending was pretty strong through the holidays, all things considered. But when you dig into how that spending is happening, there's also other warning signs, because with inflation, with the cost of everything going up, you've seen people's savings start to dissipate, because during COVID, people's savings had grown because you couldn't go out and do anything. You couldn't go out and spend money and go to restaurants or social events. By all reports, those extra savings that were kind of easing the burn from inflation had dissipated, and people have continued spending money. And this question is like, how are they doing it? And well, they're using credit cards, man. Like over $1 trillion in credit card debt across the country right now. Wow. And that's another thing. I mean, so you combine all these things, like the commercial real estate situation, unemployment, the job market itself, and the fact that people are racking up credit card debt, it makes you wonder like what could be coming. And I think there's this misconception about inflation in general. Like people are, inflation is coming down, but that's not deflation. And I think there's this concept that people don't quite understand. Like they think that prices are going to come down, and that's not the target here. Like the Fed is trying to target 2% inflation, right? And like globally, that's the standard. Like if you have 2% inflation, that's what you want for a strong economy. But that means that like the prices we're at today are not expected to go down. They're just expected to only go up 2% a year if we hit the goal that the Fed is trying to hit, right? Deflation is not good for the economy. So I think we need to like realize this is the new normal for prices, right? And then lastly, like the market is pricing in 4 rate cuts this year, which is a good thing for, assets, risk on assets like crypto. But, it also begs the question, what do they see coming? Because they're not going to just cut rates unless there's a need to cut rates. And normally that coincides with a weakening job market or a recession. And, we just had our FOMC. There's 8 meetings a year. We just had one, I think it was just yesterday. And they didn't touch rates there. They're not, as of right now, expected to touch rates in the March session. So we could see them start lowering rates, this summer. But it makes me wonder, like, is there something they're expecting to come in order to have to lower rates? I don't know. So I'm not saying like we're going to have some crazy recession. I'm just saying you need to manage risk and be aware of all possible scenarios, because I'm sure you saw it in the last market cycle. People were telling me they're taking out like second mortgages on their home, like cashing out their 401ks, putting their life savings into the market. And it's an exciting space. There's a lot of upside there, but, and none of this is financial advice, but I would just say like, be aware of risk management and what possible scenarios there are, because there is a scenario here where the bull market might get pushed out, 2-3 years potentially, if we have some sort of crash, in the global economy. So it's just kind of a warning. I don't know what your thoughts are, and then I'll talk about where I think what the most likely scenario is and how I'm planning on playing it. But like, what are your thoughts?
I'm glad you brought that up, that people were taking out mortgages and like doubling down on crypto. And I thought it's interesting because a lot of the people that were doing that pretty much at the peak of the bull run or the tail end of the bull run. When they're like, no, it's coming back down. It'll go back up. And these are people that just don't understand the space. They haven't been in the space long enough, and they're making these huge mistakes on their life savings because someone told them to buy Bitcoin, or the fear of missing out, FOMO. We see it all the time with projects. And that's a really important thing that unfortunately a lot of people don't know yet, and they're going to have to learn the hard way going into the next bull run, when or if it does happen. And we're going to see this time and time again until people start to learn how this market works. I mean, it still is a young space, even though it's only been, oh my gosh, how many years? 15 years now. It's still young. I mean, the stock market's been around forever. So there's plenty of ups and downs that we can see. And another thing I did enjoy that you did mention is all of the real world stuff, because a lot of people say crypto is like not real. But you're comparing all this real world stuff to crypto, which is what a lot of other people are doing as well. And it's kind of legitimizing the space. We're seeing all these major players coming in, and especially with the ETF launch, it's really transitioning the space into something more solid, and it's having a lot better of a backing than it ever has been. And I think that is, I mean, we have no clue what that's going to lead us to. This could lead Bitcoin to going to $1 million, like people have speculated for so many years.
For sure. I do think that Bitcoin eventually will go to $1 million. I do. People might think I'm crazy for that, but I think that it's just a matter of like when it will happen. But yeah, like, look, these ETFs, like BlackRock's been buying up Bitcoin in droves. Like, I mean, so I don't, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm just trying to make people aware of the possible scenarios. Like, I'm obviously still very active in the space, and I think there's a lot of potential here. And like, what I'm hoping, the scenario I hope plays out here, okay, is that in the coming months, yes, we might see some issues with the banking and the commercial real estate. We might see the job market weaken, but I do think that we'll see the Fed start to lower rates. Okay, say like May, June, because inflation's at like what I think it's like I want to say 3.3%. They have to start lowering rates before we get to 2, because if they wait till we get to 2, it's too late. So I think we're going to start softening this out, and they're trying to get this what they call a soft landing. So if they can pull this thing off, rates start getting lower. We have the Bitcoin having supposed to be April 20th, right? And if history repeats itself, we should start to see this bull run hit July, August, September timeframe, going into election season. Right? They're not going to want a recession going into election season. So I think this could play out where we have this nice bull run, and everything happens like we're hoping. But I will say, one of the things I learned in the last market cycle is it's okay to take some profits on the way up. Like DCAing in at the bottom and, in the bear market is really smart, but DCAing out I'm not saying like cash out your position. I'm saying take some money off the table on the way up, right? Because, towards the end of this year into 2025, there's still potential that I think we could see a recession hit. Like I don't think we're out of the woods necessarily, even if we see a soft landing through election season. So I think you can kind of play this, and this is how I plan to play it. Okay. Keep building my positions right now. And hopefully this bull run hits. And then going into 2025, start dollar cost averaging out, taking a little bit off the table, but like keeping my positions for sure. But that way, like, let's say we do have this super cycle hit, like that people have been calling for like the last 8 years, right? You still have your positions where you can take advantage of that market cycle. But if you're pulling a little bit off the table and you have this cash on the side, you're also positioning yourself that if we have a crash, you can pounce on that opportunity, because that's where, if you look back to 2008, like that's where you can make generational, wealth, is by having money sidelined, and cash is king in those situations. So I think you can play both sides of this by, DCAing out to an extent, keeping your positions, and kind of be able to take advantage of either scenario. And that's my game plan right now. I don't know if that's going to come to fruition, man, but like that's kind of how I'm looking to play this thing.
That's great. Yeah. So I'll take that as financial advice, and
dude, I'll take that as financial advice. All right. Well, let's talk about, the future state of HiMapper. What are your thoughts, by the way, on where the project's going? Or, I know you're mapping right now. Are you planning on building a fleet or anything, or just kind of doing your personal mapping, or what are your thoughts?
yeah, so I live with 5 other guys, and one of them I took a road trip all the way to Louisiana and back. So we drove. It was a weekend. It was, I think, like 4 days. We drove from New Jersey, where I'm at, all the way down and back. Stopped in Nashville, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. So we saw in Georgia and North Carolina, South Carolina. We saw so many states along the way, and I got 20 hours to talk to him about crypto. I introduced him to the whole space and talked to him about HiMapper. And I was like, all right, I'll split. I think we did like a 50-50 split on the earnings that I made for HiMapper. And it paid for our entire trips. Even splitting it, I think we made like $2,300 just driving to Louisiana and back over a weekend. It paid for all the gas, all the food, any souvenirs we bought. And my friend was like, oh my God, I need to get one of these things. I was like, all right, you can get one, but you got to pay $2,300 to get on eBay right now.
Yeah.
And that's like where we're at. And this is giving me flashbacks to how Helium was. I'm seeing all the miners for sale, secondhand market, and people paying an arm and a leg. I did find it interesting that Ariel was calling them out on Twitter and in the Discord, calling them D-bags, saying like, this is not right. But that's just kind of the space. Like, and it's not just crypto. Like, you look at Xboxes and shoes, if there's a limited release or if it's hard to get your hands on one, there's going to be scalpers, and you can't really get around that. But for Honey and their future, like, I firmly believe they're going to release a different dash cam, like a third dash cam. And I think it's going to be similar to the dash cam S, but better, because I think they just kind of fell short with the dash cam S. They really, in my opinion, they dropped the ball in terms of like mounting points. There's only one mounting point. It's in the very back. So the center of gravity is off. So it'll just wobble when you're driving. And the dash cam purposes, like, it's supposed to mine crypto or map and record dash cam. There's no audio on it. And the dash cam is like, it will either mine or map or record. Like, it doesn't work simultaneous. So I think they're going back to the drawing board and trying to think of a better device, and maybe a device that can produce faster, because we're seeing right now their devices are back ordered until I think it's June now, which is just crazy to think about. And it's mostly because they're manufacturing it all in house, and it's special equipment. If they can figure out a way to make this with easier to obtain products and materials, they could just be pumping out these dash cams and covering the whole globe a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. As far as like the scalper thing, like, man, it sucks, but that's just kind of that comes with the territory when you have high, and it's not just crypto, like you mentioned, like it's when there's a high demand and scarcity for something, it is what it is. And I know like Ariel's like, people need to stop thinking about, this needs to happen in the next 6 months. It's like, I get it. But if you're in this space, like one of the beautiful things is that you can ramp up participation like no other, right? But
Yeah.
there's also, other things that you're going to have to deal with that kind of suck too, with that. So, yeah, I agree with you. So I have a prediction on what's going to happen here. I sent out one tweet about it, but I've started getting a lot of questions about people asking like, how is HiveMapper going to make it through a bear market? So I started thinking about this because Helium did, right? And we talked about all the adversity that Helium faced, and but they made it through. And the reason is because it was completely passive. Like people were like, "I'll just leave it plugged in, whatever," right? There's obviously some people that are like, "Oh, we're going to stand up against Helium and unplug our, hotspots," and I'm like, please, bro, unplug it because that's better rewards for the rest of us.
Yep.
And you're in a hex with like 30 other people and not providing any value anyway. So like, yeah, unplug your unit. That's fine. Like, so, but in the current state with HiveMapper, it's not passive, man. Like there is a decent amount of involvement with you making sure that you're downloading imagery, keeping the app open, uploading imagery, like meeting the Tuesday deadline. So, it worked the last like couple of years leading up to where we are today. And I think people were like, well, it's an early stage project. The bull run's coming up. Like that's fine if the price of honey is low and the earnings aren't that great. Like we'll work through it. And I did have some drivers that like gave me the dash cam back. They're like, it's not worth it. I'm like, big picture, come on. Like, I'm sure they're regretting that now. But I will say, to your point, like expectations are being reset, whether you like it or not. I don't think these current rewards and earnings that people are getting are sustainable by any means. So I think people need to have realistic expectations. But I do think that even if they come down to a point where, let's say you're making $15 a week, in a bear market, they need to get this to a point where it's passive enough that people will still do it. And I think that's where they're going with this. And I started thinking through, how do you do it, right? And the only way is to have a dash cam that has cell connectivity built in to where maybe you need your phone to set the dash cam up and see if it's positioned correctly. But after that, it's hands off, right? And it's downloading, uploading on its own. You don't have to interact with it. And I think that's where they're going with this. And the next question is like, how are they going to do it on the cell connectivity side? It would make sense. I think an obvious choice would be Helium Mobile because they have a Helium team as an advisor already. They've already integrated on the IoT side. You could have the potential maybe dual mining like mobile token and honey token with that. Regardless, though, like I don't think that matters as much. That'd be pretty cool. But as long as they find a cell provider that can do it in a cost-effective way, that's how they take this to the next level, in my opinion. Because number one, if you're getting a dash cam and you're like, hey, this is going to help you for insurance purposes, or like if you get in a car accident, just like any other dash cam, except you're passively earning something on it. I think that's how you get through a bear market. That's how you take this to the next level. And it opens the door for different types of fleets because I'll give you an example. I have a buddy that owns a shipping company, and he's like, I want to set these things up with my, all the truck drivers in my fleet. And I'm like, man, like there's an extra layer here where you have to interact with each individual driver to make that work. And that's a third split that you have to manage every week and stay on top of. And for me, if I'm providing the cameras, like I know the business owner, but then like that's a layer away. I don't really have much power or the ability to like be on top of these drivers to make sure they're uploading. And it makes it really difficult and really prevents you from moving into certain types of fleets. Now this would allow you to get in, to those types of fleets, because literally you're just working with business owner. They put them in there and they're like, hey, we're putting these in every truck for, insurance purposes, whatever.
Yeah.
And now you've removed that layer of complexity. So I think if they can execute on that, again, they can get these shipments out. They can name a couple of big name clients, their customers buying this data. And, we do have this bull market that's coming up. Like this project can absolutely thrive. And that's why I'm still expanding into it. But man, that's where I see this going. And there is a tweet from Ariel about some big announcement coming on.
I saw that.
Yeah. February 21st, I believe it is. Is that the date? I can't remember exactly.
I think so, with a backwards logo they have.
So that's my prediction. I've seen people that are saying that might be like a Binance listing, something like that. I think they're going to announce this new hardware. But that then kind of puts you in a weird spot. Like I have 145 dash cams ordered right now. So do you then shift those over to the new dash cam? But I would bet, if they're just starting production and announcing this, it probably won't be ready till like the end of this year and the next year. So you're kind of faced with this decision. Like, do you wait, or do you place a new order, or do you shift part of them over? Like, I'm kind of thinking through my strategy here, and assuming all this is right. I mean, this is just like going off the cuff, man. I have no idea. Yeah. But what I'm thinking about doing here is for my top drivers that are contributing the most, like upgrading them, if you will, and then taking their OG dash cams and putting them with new drivers, and kind of like have it as like an incentive for drivers that are contributing a lot. Like, hey, I'm going to upgrade your dash cam, make your process easier. That's kind of what I'm thinking through right now. But, there's a lot of details we don't know. Like, what's the price for the cell connectivity? What's the price of the dash cam itself? Like, all things to consider. But I do think that's where this is going for future state. What do you think, man? I don't know.
The cost to do all this, I feel like they would kind of have a similar thing that Helium Mobile's doing with like a $5 fee for Miami. Like, I feel like if iMapper were to release a cellular connectivity dash cam, they would have some sort of promo for the first couple of months. And then from there you'd be paying just to get a lot of people on board. And I think also it would be wise for them to continue to sell like all three of their dash cams, because you're going to have people like you who are fleet managers where absolutely having a way, like just having cell connectivity is the way to go. It's super easy, less work for them, less points of failure where they could forget to upload. But then also for the people like me who I'm just driving by myself. I got 2 dash cams in my car. Like, it's not that much of a issue for me to just go into my phone and download the images before I go back into my house. And sometimes I forget a few, so what? Because I know I'm going to get back in my car later. But I think that would be the best case scenario for them, to have all 3 options. It would also allow them to have a lot more inventory because they already have these ones produced, and they can continue to sell them to the people that want them, and then focus on getting these other ones. But there is also the possibility that if they keep all 3 of them, they're going to be strained on their resources, and they would be better off just canning the 2 of them and producing one. That's not my decision, thankfully.
Yeah. Manufacturing is tough, man. I mean, you got to hand it to them. They've executed very well, considering their manufacturing hardware that has to integrate with different software, and they're also building a map on the back end. Like, man, that is a tall task. And at the beginning, I mean, you're involved. Like, it was pretty painful. It's gotten way better.
Oh yeah,
than it was. But yeah, man, I do think that there's a lot of promise there. And I think a lot of these projects have a lot of promise. Like, I'm excited to continue pushing out videos. Like, I love watching your videos. Your channel's awesome. Like, and yeah, I mean, before we're running up on like almost an hour here, but before we, close out here, I mean, do you have any thoughts that you want to get out that we haven't talked about?
Well, there is one other project I didn't mention that I just remembered. It's XNet, which is similar to Helium Mobile, and I think there's hold on, there's one other. Let me look at it really quickly. But XNet is similar to Helium Mobile. Carrier One, they're all trying to be these crypto cellular networks, and I think that is an interesting space because HiveMapper could use one of them as well. They don't have to use Helium Mobile. They could use AT&T, Verizon, but they could also be looking to start with one of these younger projects that has uh, different options for scalability. I mean, the Helium 5G devices are ridiculously expensive, and I think if they were to able to get the price down on that, and that's just going to happen with time as more manufactured and the price of everything comes down, it's going to be a lot easier for this space to grow because everything can connect to cellular connectivity. Like everything needs it. You need Wi-Fi for everything. You need it for demo for the SOAR chain. You actually need to have your phone connected to it at all times with a cellular connection. Yeah, so that's an issue, but that could be fixed with some software updates they're planning on pushing. But we all need cellular data, and it's expensive. And I mean, it'll. I say this at the end of like every video. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Like
It will be,
the best
man.
I can say.
It will be, but you know, like all in all, like look, I think we are in. I truly believe we're in the right place at the right time. Like in the DePIN space, I think is going. It has just so much potential, and I think it actually has the potential to break like to an extent this whole like bull bear market thing. Because if any of these projects can like drive meaningful revenue, you can better justify valuations through a bear market, and especially with the tokenomics of some of these, like with the burn, the mint equilibrium with revenue coming into the project. Like I do think there's the potential to break some of these, sentiments around market cycles. So I don't know. It's exciting, man. And you're seeing a lot of them pop up. Like it'll be interesting to see how many of them do well and how many of them don't make it, but yeah, man, I don't know. I'm just excited, all in all. And I think this bull run is, hopefully it comes through like we hope it does. And, we're all having a good time and having drinks in a year from now.
Oh, that'd be great. We can all meet up at the next Bitcoin event. Everyone watching this video, because we all get into DePINs, and maybe there'll be a DePIN event. That's another thing. Like with the new spaces, like there's probably going to be some DePIN specific conferences and stuff in Miami, of course, and we could probably all meet up there. So that'd be cool.
That'd be awesome, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you joining me on this.
Yeah, this was great.
It's a good conversation for sure. Love to do it again sometime, man.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe to DePIN Connection as well as me, and unsubscribe from Network Bits.